the oath of office. It marked the beginning of a new political chapter in India. What followed over the next 12 years was not just a change in government, but an attempt to reshape the Indian state, economy, and society at a staggering scale. Bharat Reloaded, a special series to mark the 12th anniversary of the NDA, looks back at these momentous years through conversations with policy makers, economists, entrepreneurs, and investors. It takes stock of a decade that sought to reimagine India. I am your host, Anil Padmanabhan. Across these series, we have explored how India sought to scale state capacity, expand inclusion, strengthen public health systems, and rewire economic participation. Today, we turn to another profound transformation, the financialization of India. Because one of the clearest signs of a changing economy is how its citizens save, invest, and grow their wealth. Joining me today is one of India's most respected voices on markets and wealth creation, Neelesh Shah. He is a managing director at Kotak Mahindra Asset Management. Few people have had a front row seat to observe this pivot from savings to investing. Neelesh, thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Anil.
Neelesh, I wanted to begin with something that's in the news, gold. Historically, Indians have been risk averse, so they have preferred gold and more recently real estate. Has this changed, this preference ordering, say, in the last decade?
So, slowly and steadily, we are trying to turn the oil tanker. Indians have been obsessed with gold for thousands and thousands of years. It is part and parcel of our culture, and it's not going to change in a hurry. But let me give you just one statistics. We have been always told that India is a current account deficit country. We export far less than what we import on goods, and hence we are short in savings, and we need global investment to bridge that gap. In last 8 years, India's current account deficit on a net basis is 251 billion. India's gross import of gold is 353 billion. India is a current account surplus country if we believe that Indians are not eating gold, consuming gold, but investing in gold. We don't need global capital, provided we can leverage domestic capital instead of going into gold, goes into financial product. Now, investors have started shifting from physical to financial asset. Financialization of saving has started happening. Credit should go to SEBI, IRDAI, PFRDA, and RBI, which has pushed regulations which favor financialization. Credit should go to manufacturers like mutual funds, insurance companies who have created products to meet investor requirement, and credit should go to distribution, which has ensured that this product reaches out to every nook and corner. But we are a long, long way from moving that oil tanker in the right direction.
So it's a work in progress, right?
It's a work in progress and long-term work in progress.
So, Neelesh, I wanted to ask you that one of the key takeaways in the last 2 decades has been this instrument mutual funds have introduced called SIPs. So, has it changed the household behavior at a macro level? You have just told us that there is a pivot happening, but at the household level, has the behavior changed towards financialization of savings and discipline?
There are anecdotal evidences to suggest that people who started doing SIPs, let's say 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, they have outperformed inflation by a big margin. And today, financially, they are far better than what they would have been otherwise. A case in point is if you had done investment in public provident fund, which was common for salaried employees, and over last 25 years you had pumped in 150,000 rupees every year, collectively it would have been 37.5 lakh crore. And over 25 years, it would have compounded to about 1.1 crore tax free. The same money invested in an equity linked savings scheme, which would have given the same tax benefit, that 37.5 lakh rupees would have become roughly about 4 crore plus, but taxable. You adjust for 12.5% tax, you still end up with almost gap of 2.5 to 3 crore. That's the compounding of SIP in ELSS on a 37.5 lakh rupee investment. Undoubtedly, today when I meet SIP investors, I see someone sharing their car picture saying that Nilesh bhai, we have bought car thanks to SIP. Someone inviting you for housewarming saying that ye mera SIP ghar hai. So anecdotally we have done well, but collectively we haven't scratched the surface. The total equity mutual fund AUM, including hybrid, is about 50 lakh crore. Our NAVs have grown 10 times, 50 times, 100 times. So collective principal investment in this mutual fund would not have been more than 20-25 lakh crore. That 20-25 lakh crore has grown to 50 lakh crore. The cash in circulation in India is 42 lakh crore. It's a depreciating asset. Anyone who holds currency note today will be poorer tomorrow. And yet, after delivering 3 decades of performance, I have not been able to convince investors that please don't keep money in currency notes, please put it into mutual fund. So anecdotally, I have done very well, but I have a long distance to cover.
So, why is this not happening? What is holding them back? Why do they still prefer a loss making asset like cash?
So many years ago, Mr. Charles Johnson, founder of Franklin Templeton, had come to India. At that point of time, I was working in Templeton, and he said that, look, your job is like growing a bamboo tree. You will plant a seed, you will keep on watering, and nothing will happen. Decades will pass, and one day you will see that bamboo tree rising and going to the sky. He said, this is how mutual fund history is. Templeton took decades to reach $1 billion, then many years to go from $1 to $10 billion, and then bamboo tree started touching the sky. Today they manage hundreds of billions of dollars. The same thing will happen in India. We have to keep on doing our work in educating investors, delivering better product, better performance, connecting with them, doing appropriate distribution network, and then word of mouth publicity will move. I can keep on saying that mutual fund sahi hai, but when your parent tells that beta ek SIP kar lo, then we have arrived in life.
So, Nilesh, this fact that something is holding them back, is it also due to the fact that India is very early in its development story relatively? Till, say, even 5 years ago, our primary objective was to fight poverty, abject poverty. Today, thanks to foundational inclusion becoming saturation, that story is changed. Now it is converting this capability, rather this foundational inclusion into capability, into jobs, into skills. So is it that also contributing because bulk of the population has just joined the formal market?
So India is such a large country, Anil, that whatever one says opposite is also true. So undoubtedly that is the larger narrative, where people don't have enough savings to actually make investment. People don't have enough risk appetite to actually make an investment. People don't have advisor and distributor who can reach out to them at that level and bring them into financialization. That's the larger part of the problem. But there is also greed prevalent in the market. Retail speculators' loss, as per SEBI's research, between FY22 to FY25 is 2,80,000 crore. Now, Anil, there will be some smart guys and some not so smart guys. So not so smart guys loss could be 3,50,000 crore, or maybe 3 lakh crore, or maybe 4 lakh crore. We don't know the number. Then there is digital fraud. In last 3 years, digital fraud would have touched about 50,000 crore. Now some of it is reported, some of it is not reported. Again, digital fraud is playing on the fear of investors. Then there is Ponzi schemes. You remember PACL in the 2 decades back? They in those days collected 5 crore investors. Mutual fund industry have touched 5 crore investors now, and they collected money from 5 crore investors, promising sky. So there is greed also. So while there is fair amount of work which we have to do, there is also focus. There is a need for focusing upon managing the greed through rule of law. The speculative FNO we need to control. The digital fraud we need to control. The Ponzi schemes we need to control.
And if we look at this pivot that's happening, and given all these risks that you just listed, the access, rather the ecosystem for investing in India today is vastly improved. You would agree, right? So, given this, can now we say that India is democratizing the idea of investment where everyone can aspire to grow their wealth?
So undoubtedly, people are striving for wealth. Uh, the simple living and high thinking that's there also in the culture. At the same time, there is materialistic movement also. But in terms of democratization of saving, while what we have done is impressive, I think there is a long road ahead. Innovation is something which is not encouraged in the system. For example, long back we had a concept of Khoka company. A company, dummy company will be listed on exchange, and you could merge an existing company into that and get it listed. We all discourage Khoka company. The same thing becomes SPAC, special purpose acquisition vehicle, in US. And now I have seen global consultant recommending that to SEBI without realizing it is who we have introduced back to the Americans. That innovation which exists in the bylanes of Dalal Street, like option market. We introduced options market very, very late. The Jhota Fatak was trading on the outskirts of Raja Bahadur compound outside of market hours for decades. How do we bring that innovation of bylanes under the regulatory system? Undoubtedly, running grey market in bylane is of no use. It needs to be in the regulatory sandbox, and we need innovation. How do I bring currency notes into banking system? How do I monetize gold lying in tijori for the benefit of the economy? How do I bring liquidity into most illiquid asset of real estate through tokenization? There are lots of financial innovation which India will have to pursue if we want to leverage our domestic wealth, domestic savings for higher growth.
Nilesh, if I've understood you right, what you're saying is access alone is not enough. You also need to introduce or encourage financial innovation
Absolutely.
so that the investment behavior becomes lucrative and also diversified.
Absolutely.
Assuming this trajectory endures, what does it mean for the economic future of India when such financialization of savings takes root?
So we will encourage innovation, will create higher growth, we will create more inclusive growth. For example, I met someone and he said, Nilesh, by all our CAD CAM designs which we do for the world happens on a software which is a global software. We are licensee of that software. How much time, money, and effort is required to make a Indian design CAD CAM software? It requires, as per that gentleman, about 1,000 mathematicians. That's roughly about 250 crore a year. If let's say there was a tokenization available where I could have gone to an average Indian saying that here is your contribution to make Atmanirbhar Bharat in CAD CAM design software. And let's fund a company which will hire 1,000 mathematicians and develop CAD CAM design software in India. I think 250 crore to mobilize from 25 crore Indian will not be a difficult thing. This kind of smaller mobilization will create growth, inclusive growth, sustainable growth, faster growth, and most importantly, the fruits of our labor will remain within the country rather than going to outside.
Basically, it creates a alternative route for savings, and you don't have to borrow from abroad to fund
Absolutely.
you.
I mean, in the 70s, we produced Manthan, which was from the subscription of, I think, 5 lakh farmers. Where did we forget that model? That was financial innovation. We should have encouraged it further.
Nilesh, the subtext of what you just said is that, if I understood you right, one, there is a historical evidence of our investors or retail investors understanding the idea of risk. You gave the example of Operation Flood. So is that means that is already latent? The question is you need to give it an avenue. Is that also, and also a new generation? We are a very young nation. So many of your investors are Gen Z or Gen X. Are they understanding of risk as good as their predecessors who, say, created Operation Flood?
So, one, we are a bundle of contradiction. By not taking risk, we call ourselves conservative or risk avoider. Because risk avoidance is not sitting in stadium and letting go the match. Risk management is wear yourself with helmet, pad, gloves, take the bet, stand on the crease, and if a bouncer comes, duck, and if a half volley comes, hit for a six. Not participating in match is not risk avoidance, not risk management, it's covidism. Going onto the pitch and playing the ball on merit is risk management. Going onto the pitch without helmet, pad, gloves, and hoping that you will hit the bouncer for a six is stupidity. We should neither be coward nor stupid. We should be managing the risk right by playing ball on merit.
I loved your analogy about cricket. Basically, what you're telling us that risk reward is a trade-off.
Absolutely.
So it's not either or.
Yes.
So now, what worries you most about the new investors? Because it's the first time that we are seeing, last 5 years, repeated shocks to the world economy, which have also impacted India, beginning with COVID-19. So this generation of investors are seeing shocks for the first time. I can see everybody, rushing to see their dashboard. So what worries you now, going forward?
So, one worry is from our side. As a mutual fund manager, we have created narrative about long-term investment, regular investment, asset allocation. We have built a goodwill, a connect among a small set of Indians. About 6 crore Indians are investing in mutual fund. I need to ensure that I manage their trust and I manage their confidence. Everyone thinks we are in the business of managing money, but people have given us money because they trusted us. And we need to do, as mutual fund industry, everything possible to manage their trust. And in today's social media, there could be rumors or misreporting which can put that trust at risk. We need to be alert and we need to deliver on our promises. The second worry is that will India become old and aged without becoming rich? I think Indians are hard workers. They also save. Our savings ratio is one of the highest in the world. But when it comes to invest, we are a lousy nation. Our allocation, like 42 lakh crore in currency in circulation, which gives zero return. There are very few countries where currency in circulation to GDP ratio will be so high, 11% plus. Second, we are also greedy. People believe financial security will be achieved through lottery purchase. India's most educated state is Kerala, and they spend more money buying lottery annually instead of investing in, let's say, equity mutual funds or direct equity. Now, they all know that in the lottery business, the day buyer starts make money, sellers will stop business. But that continues. Then I talked about digital fraud. I talked about FNO speculation. I talked about Ponzi scheme. Collective loss to the retail investors could be lakhs of crore. If we don't change these habits, then we probably will age without becoming rich. India needs to be financially secured. Every Indian needs to be financially secured. Today, we provide food to 80 crore Indians free of cost. A day should come where we will be willing to provide free food, but there should not be any taker because they have become financially secured.
So this, why is this happening? That you mentioned that great example about Kerala. Is it desire for a windfall payout, or is it that you're willing to? I mean, you're not willing to take a long-term risk. You're willing to take a short-term risk, like F&Os.
So, money is complex, and while we believe investors are rational, they are all emotional. For example, in a country like India, how many of you use sunroof? 6 months there is summer and 4 months there is rains. None of us use sunroof, but in the car, sunroof takes away 7 to 10% of the cost. It's an unnecessary investment. But people spend. The same emotions drive their allocation to investment. One side is greed, you become overnight rich kind of dream. Other side is fear. In COVID time, some people ended up selling and converting notional loss to real loss. Third side is distribution. We haven't yet built distribution pipeline as good as it should be. The number of distributors which are selling financial product in a relatively advanced nation like US is far more than number of people selling in India, even though we have 5 times more population than US. Then comes financial innovation. Today, I have products for the fifth gear or the first gear, but the second, third, fourth gear products I don't have. For example, you want 10% return, I want 20% return. But the medium return is, let's say, 15%. Now, you won't come because for generating 15% return, I'll have to take a risk which is unacceptable to you, and you are happy with 10% return. The other guy will not come because he's unhappy with the return. Can I create a slicing of the instrument where the higher risk goes to the first person, and in lieu of that, he gets 5% additional return, and lower risk goes to the conservative guy, and he sacrifices 5% return. Now, by investing in instrument carrying 15%, I have created two risk return profile. One will give 10% with lower risk, other will give 20% with higher risk. Suddenly, I bring two investors into formal set of finance. This financial innovation we are still lacking. So, distribution, innovation, and education. This triangle needs to be completed so that every Indian could be financially secured.
And this will be the foundation for India to create a wealth economy in the next decade.
Undoubtedly. Today, Anil, sadly, so many of our startups are doing wonderful business. But when they do wonderful business, celebrations will be in Tokyo and Singapore and London and New York, not in Mumbai and Delhi and Kolkata and Chennai. We have given up ownership of many of our company. In India, the largest FMCG company, the largest automobile company, the largest bank, the largest insurance, the largest private insurance company, largest listed company, largest engineering company,
Payments.
largest wealth management company, they are all majority owned by foreigners. Their success will be celebrated outside, not in India. We need to ensure that economic ownership of India Inc. remains well distributed in India.
Great note to sign off on. Thank you so much, Neelesh, for speaking to us.
Thank you, Anil. It was my pleasure.
For generations, wealth in India was built slowly, often conservatively, and often outside the formal financial system. But today's conversation with Neelesh suggests something deeper may be changing. The Indian saver is becoming an Indian investor. Risk is being redefined, not simply as danger, but as an opportunity. Markets are no longer the preserve of a few. They are becoming a platform for wider participation in the country's growth story. And that may be one of the most important transformations of the last decade. Because when citizens move from merely preserving wealth to actively creating it, economies change, aspirations change, and societies change. Thank you for watching.
पढ़ता है, खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
जब धरती चीर कर निकलता है लोहे का पत्थर और मिलता है मोंगिया के जोश से, फिर तपता है